Culture Radio. It is 19 hours 30 all across this lovely land of Guyana. It has been an eventful day and we see eventful days ahead. But in the meantime, it is time to enter room 592 where we unleash the truth with Dr. Yog Mahadeo alongside senior journalist of Kaichor News, Leonard Gildarie, and their esteemed guests, attorneys at law Timothy Jonas and Ryan Crawford. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening to you. Good evening to my co-host Leonard Gildarie, and good evening to all of the Kaichor Radio technical and management crew there. How are you guys doing?
We're keeping up. We're keeping up.
They're very happy. They're giving us the salaries this month then.
Well, I heard Kevin say just now they're all across this beautiful land of Guyana, and I felt really, really nice there because you know what? It's catching on. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what's happening on the political scene, this is a lovely country, and we must never forget that. With lovely people, we must never forget that. Frustrations of the political opportunists aside, and we all vent, and we know someone who has vented quite audibly in the past, and he's going to join us here tonight as we welcome Mr. Ryan Crawford to our room 592. Welcome to you, sir.
Hi, good night.
Good night, good night. And welcome to room 592. Ladies and gentlemen all across Guyana and wherever else you're joining us from, welcome to room 592, where we unleash the truth. And just to put it in perspective, this election seems to be the longest, well, it is now probably the longest election the world over. And we have a dire situation in this country, ladies and gentlemen. The reality is that the ANUG AFC knows they have lost. They know they have lost this election. They're not saying they have won anymore. Mind you, you check any of the airways, check any of their outlets. They're not saying they won. In fact, they've admitted they lost these elections. But they still want somebody to do something so that they can remain illegally in power. And illegal it is. On March 2nd, 111 days ago, this country voted them out of power, out of office. Since then to now, they have continued to earn taxpayers' money, continue to take their pleasures at the will and at the cost of the taxpayers of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, let us not forget these travesties of justice and goodness and all the goodwill that they have thrown out of the window. We can forgive, but let us not forget. We have to hold their politicians' feet to ransom. As we welcome our guest tonight, and later on we will be joined by Mr. Timothy Jonas, we want to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Ryan Crawford, as you know, is a practicing attorney at law. He has been to many Berbetians, an outspoken advocate for their rights, and not just political rights, but their legal rights as well. And he has been part of the new set of politicians that would have joined the scene from purely the perspective of being, and I mean no pun when I say this, being fed up with status quo, being absolutely unable to digest things the way they are anymore. It is, and it was time, and it is now time to say bye-bye, Mr. Granger. Let this country move on. Mr. Crawford, welcome to you, sir. How are you, and what's the latest you can tell us from your perspective of the goings-on in Guyana?
Good night, and thank you for having me on the show. Thank you, Gildarie, for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Before you go on, what should I call you? The boys had a problem with your name. They didn't know what to put on Ryan Crawford, Mr. Crawford.
Well, you could. Well, Ruel has been teasing me on Facebook about my real name, so you can actually use my real name. I mean, most people don't know my real name.
I'm scared to even delve into that unknown, uncharted waters kind of thing. But
Well, my first name is actually Curtis, and my middle name is Ryan. So my name is Curtis Ryan Crawford,
oh,
not
my
the
apologies.
other name.
And Mr. Crawford, are you sure that now that we know that name, that you are not one of the names objected to in these 35 days of the recount? As you know, Dave Kisoon was objected to.
No, I am not. I'm not one of the names that
Okay.
were objected to. I just need to make a little correction to what you said earlier, that I am one of the newer people that are on the scene, the political scene. Actually, I've been an AFC member since 2010, and I am, along with Dr. Ramaya and the other gentleman that voted in the no confidence motion. We were basically the three of us were responsible for Berbice. So we were very strong advocate in 2011 election and again in 2015 election.
Mhm.
So I have been around for a while. I just never really came out of Berbice because I never sought any political, positions or anything like that. I
Well,
just felt
if
as
I,
though,
you are right. If I can interject for just 1 second, you are absolutely right. I stand corrected. And indeed, Mr. Charandas Prasad on air a little while back did mention the good work that yourself and being part of that team would have done for the people in Burmese. So thank you for that.
yes, we wanted a government that was reflective of the people, that were more interested in uniting the nation. But after the 2015, we had so much high hopes for this government, and I mean, they have done some good. I cannot deny that they have not done some good. But in terms of actually bringing the nation together, they have not done so. And right now, the coalition is in jeopardy, and I don't know how they're going to recover from it. I do have some problems with the actual recount, which I am not in line with the rest of the folks in terms of the recount. I don't know if there is a legal um, provision that provided for the president and the opposition leader to come together to say, let's have a recount, because a recount implies that there was a count and we never had a count. The problem with the entire situation is that we never had a complete count the first time. And then we have a recount, but we still have an outstanding declaration that's still staring us in the face, which is totally, I believe, totally wrong. So I'm looking at provisions, but I haven't found the provision that says the recount is supposed to invalidate the second declaration.
Right.
So
You're right. Okay. Would the statement that the Madam Chair, would that have made any that pronouncement that the recount results would put, she would have held him in abeyance until replaced?
well, I mean, legally speaking, it doesn't. I don't know of a provision that says that that could happen. What I think should have happened in the first place is when the matter came before the Chief Justice, she should have made wide sweeping orders that if Mingo did not do what he was supposed to do, he would have then been in contempt of court. I mean, had that been done then, we would not have been where we are now with 100 and something days going going past. Had there been orders made and putting people in check, the most likely the PPP would have been in power a couple of days after the actual elections. But unfortunately, that did not happen. And when you do not do what you're supposed to do in terms of having the correct orders, we see what we are seeing what has occurred, where it's been 100 and something days, which is totally ridiculous. We are in a country where foreigners are coming to tell us to do the most simplest of things, right versus wrong, and it's sickening to see that politicians and lawyers are going to hold a nation hostage. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And when we leave this country, the rest of the world will look at us as fools.
Yes.
The same way how they're looking at us when we had to decide 33 versus 32.
Hmm.
And those are things we need to correct.
Correct. That's right. So, Mr. Crawford, we are at a juncture where, and let me welcome Mr. Timothy Jonas. Mr. Crawford, we are at a juncture where, obviously, once again, there is another delay. In your esteem, sir, should ACNU have done should they have conceded these elections and let's move on and then immediately file their elections petitions?
Honestly, I am not surprised that they would have gone the way I would have been, really disappointed had they not filed something in court. Because judging from what happened since the no confidence motion, their entire, for the last year and a half or 2 years, it's been fighting to keep power. So I'm not surprised that they did what they're doing. I do have a problem with the Constitution as it stands now. According to our Constitution, even if there are irregularities or any problems of rigging in an election, a declaration must be done and a president must be sworn in, and then we're going to challenge it by an election petition. I don't understand, legally speaking, how a wrong could be allowed to continue, and then we're going to challenge the wrong. I mean, legally in our courts, if someone is breaking down your fence, you go for an injunction or you try to stop them from breaking your fence. But with the election laws, we are saying, go ahead and do the wrong, and then we'll come later and correct it. And we never had an election petition dealt with in our courts, and it's one of the areas that the new government needs to correct.
Hmm. But how? I mean, are we going to see a new government in your mind, sir? Are we?
I believe so. I believe that by Monday, hopefully, that at some point in time, the people that are sitting on the bench at the Court of Appeal will make the right decision. I hope that they will understand that the will of the people must triumph. I am hoping that decency will at some point in time take over. And and there is something that is also troubling for people like myself and maybe for Tim. I maybe he will speak on that on his own. But when you are a mixed person like me and like Tim, you have to walk a really fine line, because if I say something supportive of PPP, the other side brands me as a traitor. If
Does
I
it
say
worry you?
something
Does it worry you,
against,
Tim? Ryan?
I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I mean, I just don't understand how, as a nation, we have moved away from doing the right thing. I
Hmm.
mean, when the I mean, from since you were small, you were told and you were taught to do the right thing, and
Right.
this for the last hundred and something days has not been the right thing. And if you say that it's wrong, people are automatically brand you as some sort of traitor.
Hmm. Mr. Crawford, if I were to ask you, sir, if tonight Mr. Granger picks up that phone and call you and say, Ryan Crawford, Curtis Ryan Crawford, I want to hire you as my attorney to prolong these elections a little bit more, come and work with me. What would you say, sir?
Um, I wanted to post that on my Facebook, but I didn't want to be disrespectful to my colleagues who are Caribbean trained lawyers. But in order for you to be a lawyer in the U.S., you must pass the exam, a national exam of professional responsibility and ethics. If you know that something is wrong as a lawyer, you cannot support it, or you should not support it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, as a lawyer, how you support someone who has blatantly disrespected the Constitution in the highest in the highest office, and I would not represent him, or I would not be a part of something like that. The will of the people should be recognized, and we need to move on.
Thank you. Well said there. In terms of Tim, thank you for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, let us recognize that Timothy Jonas has joined us here and will join the conversation, of course. In terms of what's happened today, uh, is it beyond? Should we have expected, or could we as a people have expected that the court might say, look, we'll give you a decision tomorrow? I mean, the entire country is waiting. Why wait for Monday? Why give these people another 24, 48 hours to think of some other excuse again? Ryan?
Well, actually, I went to the court yesterday, and I was sort of disappointed in that I expected that there would have been points in limine taken to say that the application was bad in law, because I posted something on my Facebook that there were no grounds to the motion. So I thought that should have been taken, and the authority should have been given that the motion is bad. But I guess the learned lawyers waited until today to fully ventilate the issues. But I don't see the point in the application. I mean, someone has a constitutional duty to make that report, and he didn't have the decency to come and show up. He was at home, and there is no penalty for him not doing his job. And these are areas that need to be corrected in the next parliament. That if you have a constitutional duty to do your job, you do it.
Yep.
And for the sake, Yog, for the sake of people who are watching, could the good counsel explain what he meant by that, by somebody not turning up? Who didn't turn up?
Well, there was stuff on the internet that suggested that the CEO was at home, and I just there was nothing, there was no injunction or anything stopping him from doing what he was supposed to do, and he is paid by the people of this country, and he must respond accordingly. Do your job, whether without fear or favor, and do it well.
Correct.
He cannot decide who wins an election. All he has to do is to put together a report so that the chairperson makes that declaration, and he couldn't do that. And that is disrespectful to the country. Is disrespectful to the Constitution. And if I say that right now, the other side is up in arms that I am now siding with PPP. I'm neither PPP nor am I PNC. I am just a man who is interested in a country who I think has great potential, and we're killing it by our behaviors.
That's right. Excellent statement there, Leonard, by Attorney at Law Ryan Crawford. He, that is Lowenfield, cannot decide on his own who has won or lost these elections. He is limited, or he is supposed to just put the numbers together and do what is instructed. Tim, one of our viewers asked, and I couldn't answer. I have to put this question to you. Why is Timothy Jonas so serious?
You never know how you present to other people. I'll tell you a story. No, you know what's in your head, but you don't know what other people see when they're looking at you. But I had been accused during my practice. As you get older, you get more familiar with the judges, so they speak to you informally sometimes. And I had been accused of being less than respectful when addressing the court, and I couldn't understand it. They told me I laughed when they asked me a question. And one of my early appearances in the CCJ, the CCJ is different because they televise you. So when it's over, you get to look back. And of course, I look back to improve. And the court asked me a question and I laughed. And I remember laughing because I was so happy that the court was in sync with my argument. So I was relieved and I laughed in relief. But the laughter came across as if I thought it was a stupid question.
Right.
And I didn't realize that until I saw myself laughing when the judge asking me this question, like looking over your glasses like that. So you don't know how people see you. You do the best you can. And I will try to smile more often. I apologize to your viewer for looking so serious.
So Tim, I must start with this because Mr. Crawford made a very early on. He made a very important statement that people, as soon as you say something, and let me advise you, both gentlemen. It's not only you. It's not only you.
Yeah,
I have been accused of being AFC and PNC and PPP and everything in my life. The truth is, though, that you both have come under some, and Tim, more recently, you have come under some vicious, nasty, racist attack. How does a man like Tim deal with a racist attack other than just ignore it? Why I'm asking you this, Tim? Because likewise, many people in this country are attacked. But people may not be like you and just take it and say, take it in stride. They are reacting.
You see, when you're conducting an argument, you start logically. You do the best you can to present your points in a collegiate manner, debating. But then if your points get torn apart, you fall back and you fall back and you fall back. Now, in this whole escapade, the first approach by ANUG was we won these elections, they were fair. And that was a very reasonable, rational thing to say, knowing that Mingo had committed fraud, but no one else saw. The whole country was waiting for the result. We won, it sounded good. And the first appearance in court to talk about the James Patterson appointment, so-called plausible, okay, they lose. The second appearance in court to talk about 65 divided by 2 and was a majority with the Charandas no confidence motion. They lost. After you start losing and after your arguments make you look less and less plausible, there's not much left to rely on, is there? And at the end of the day, this conversation has deteriorated where people were at first saying, we're a party for all there. We're a coalition of 6, and the other side say we represent all. Look at, we have a black prime minister, we have an Indian prime minister, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, both parties are ethnically based. And because unhappily, we saw a rig by one party and not the other, and called it out honestly. The sad reality was when we called it out, we were calling it out against the party that we saw rig, and that party happened to be the party of our ethnicity. Mm-hmm. So after all the plausible denials are expunged and thrown out, what you're left with is, man, you're a traitor to your people. Mm-hmm. And it boils down to race. And the people who are saying that, unfortunately, the people who are saying, oh, you're a traitor, they're not recognizing that without any knowledge, without any, their desperation to believe makes them hate you. And the only thing they can cling to is, why are you siding with the PPP? Not realizing nobody's siding with the PPP, we fighting a rig. If the PPP had rigged, I'd have been fighting against the PPP. I'm not fighting for the PPP, I'm fighting for democracy.
Correct.
But unfortunately, it places me in a situation where the party I'm fighting against is the party of my ethnicity, and therefore I'm a traitor. Mm-hmm. And the people who say this, the people who have boiled down to that ugly, low place, aren't recognizing that their only reason for supporting this party is ethnicity. Mm-hmm. So they are ethnically loyal.
Right. Well,
and there's a worrisome something to say in this country. Ethnically supportive.
Yep. Yes, Ryan, go on.
Actually, I have a different view about hate speech. I think that hate speech should be protected speech. I think a person should be free to say what they want to say, with certain exceptions, just like the US. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can legislate how someone, where someone says it or wherever. But people should be free to say what they want. I would prefer a person hate me publicly and tell me that they hate me, so I know I need to avoid them, than to smile with me and in the end they're trying to shaft me. We have gotten to a place where this racial divide benefits these major political parties, and when it happens, you don't see the leaders coming forward to quell this nonsense. And we have not made any inroads in trying to bring the nation together, and it's beneficial to them. So that's why it's just keep going, and it's building and building over and over. But in terms of, standing up for what is right, there should not be a situation where you should be called a traitor just from saying something is right. And I was told or taught by my father that if you're going to make an argument, you always make your argument on a principled position that cannot be moved, and you can never lose. As long as you make your argument on solid grounds that is right, nothing could change that. And we saw on live television one man, who held the nation hostage since then, making or lying to the nation by changing numbers. And if you were to say that is wrong, people brand you as being a bad person. I don't see how that is possible. And that needs to change.
Correct. So, Mr. Crawford, and from another perspective, I want to ask you this. The current scenario is that we are where we are, and the APNU AFC has remained in office. It is widely believed that Mr. Granger can bring all of this to an end by just conceding. Is there any, in your mind, and after that, Tim, you can comment, is there any impediment, legal impediment, that can stop Mr. Granger from conceding at having lost these elections?
No, there isn't anything there to say that. Like I said earlier, had Mingo did what he needed to do at Ashman's building, the PPP would have been in power. Now we have gone into this situation where it's been days. From the recount numbers, the PPP has been straightforward with the nation, in my view, that these are the numbers that we have from the SOPs. The APNU side or the coalition side has not declared or shown anyone their SOPs.
Right.
And they are, if you have won, if you did win the election, you should have shown the people, come forward and show them, tell them. But what they have done, they have lied to their supporters, and they are creating a situation whereby it could lead to violence. Because I am grateful for what happens on Facebook, where people are voicing their opinions, whether good or bad, and people are genuinely angry that the PPP has rigged the election. Now the rhetoric is that the PPP rigged the election. It's no longer we won the election,
right?
And it's continuously being fueled to a point where if we do not control this could lead to violence. And this is not something that we need the leaders, we need the president and everyone else to come forward and be honest with their supporters and let them know that they lost the election and gracefully exit stage left. And the problem here is, had they called the election within the 3-month period, they had a better chance of winning, because the PPP did not even like Irfan Ali. He's probably the weakest PPP candidate they ever had. And the longer they continue with this court action and everything else, people start to disengage from them. And they're continuing now. So I think the president should come forward, accept the numbers that were done in the recount, and let's move on.
Right.
Well, that's a very interesting thing, Yog, because
Yes.
I think Change Guyana, this is Robert Battle's party, has now joined with the rest. And they're saying time for a swift, smooth, and democratic transition of governance. David Granger must now concede victory to the winning PPP and allow for the inauguration of Dr. Irfan Ali as President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. The results of the CARICOM supervisory count of the votes cast on March 2nd, 2020 are irrefutable, confirming a PPP victory. That came out from Robert Badal not too long ago. From him and his Nigel Hines, the chairman of the Change Guyana. He's the leader of Change Guyana, and Nigel Hines, chairman. Join the rest of the folks.
Right. Well spoken, Mr. Badal. Tim, to you, I want to ask this question, and of course, Ryan, you can come in. The matter of jurisdiction for this current matter in front of the court, is that something that is still in play?
Yeah, the thing that comes up in this current proceedings is jurisdiction. Article 177 is a very specialized, very narrow article. It allows an application to be made directly to the Court of Appeal, not to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal. So as an originating court, not as an appeal, asking the court if a question arises as to the eligibility of a president, to determine that, to declare it, and
we have lost you there, Tim. You're muted.
You need to unmute.
Somehow Tim was muted. Okay. Kevin, what are you doing there, boy?
I'm not sure what I do then.
oh, Kevin, I'm sorry. Whatever I said, I apologize. Yeah, so the approach then is that the very narrow ambit of Section 1 of Article 177 contemplates this application direct to the Court of Appeal to ask about declarations as to the qualification of a president being elected or interpretation of the Constitution insofar as that question arises. Now, the present application has all kinds of things, and therefore was not within Article 177, and that's why the jurisdictional point arose. It was said to the court, one very small item of relief that was asked for, among all the declarations saying Lowenfield mustn't declare under Section 96 and all of those things that the court certainly cannot do, was a request for a declaration as to the definition of the most votes cast. Because the earlier article in the Constitution says that the presidential candidate of the party for whom the most votes is cast is deemed to be the president. And it was quite innocuous. It asked the court to say that the most votes cast means the most valid votes. Well, that's almost a nonsense, because obviously you got to be talking about valid votes. You can't be talking about votes cast in Czechoslovakia or votes cast by 5-year-olds. Obviously, you're talking about valid votes. So what does valid votes mean? So it was so wide and so academic, so hypothetical, that it almost didn't matter. And yet, interestingly enough, it seemed to be the fallback of Mr. Jeremy John, who is counsel applicant. There is a definition of valid votes in the context of the legislation. But the reason that jurisdictional point is so important is that if the Court of Appeal makes an order that is outside of the ambit of Article 177, then an appeal will lie to the CCJ. So it may be that there's some comfort in the idea that whatever the Court of Appeal decides is it. And we're all stuck with it. But if they stick their necks beyond Article 177, and they're not making an Article 177 order, they're making some other kind of order, and you can appeal to the CCJ. Okay. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you. Ryan, any comments from you?
Regarding the applications before the court?
Yes, well, yeah, on the same topic of jurisdiction and or the outcome that can be. It's interesting that Tim mentioned. Everybody's interested to know whether this thing whether it could or will go to the CCJ by either party?
I hope it comes to an end on Monday, and that's what I'm praying for, because I think we had enough. I think the nation is fed up now,
Mm-hmm.
and I will leave it at that.
Right. Now, I just want to throw something. Leonard, I'll throw this to you, not to our two attorneys. A lot of talk has been hitting the airways over the past 24 to 48 hours about Cambridge Analytica. It seems like that is now the new narrative. Somebody has created a video in which they're hiding their faces. There's some photo up there, and they're saying how Mr. Donald Ramatar seemed to have employed Cambridge Analytica, and the words that Mr. Ramjatan has used. I've never seen those ads in Guyana. He's saying there were ads profiling Hindus and ads profiling races and so forth, and things like that. I've never seen those ads. But Leonard, from a journalist perspective, I mean, how would you now investigate this accusation, or is it, to Tim and Ryan, is it of any merit at this stage to raise these things about Cambridge Analytica and Mercury, and they're absurdly silent about JJ and BLLC? Leonard?
Well, that's a pretty good question. At this point in time, our reporters were at the court today. Yog, what I could tell you is that our attention is on the courts. Our attention is whatever else is developing. This new thing here, I think Guyana is not too interested in who is doing what on Facebook. I think what might be a more pertinent question is what role did Facebook and social media play in the entire elections? But Cambridge and those others, unless it's state funds being paid, I'm not sure in what way this would have an impact on what is coming out Monday or so. Maybe this would have had a relevance about 2 3 months back, leading up to the elections. At this point in time, I'm not sure how relevant that is. I don't think the reporters are paying attention to it.
Okay. Gentlemen, any comments from you both, Ryan, Tim, about this whole narrative with Cambridge Analytica and all of that? Mind you, I know that President Donald Ramatar's name, former President Donald Ramatar, is mentioned there. And I have contacted him to come in room 592 and let's talk about it. Hopefully, we can get that done sooner rather than later. But does it do anything to these elections, Ryan and Tim? Ryan, you first.
I don't think they impact the election in any way. Our election is quite basic, where you take a pencil and you put an X on some ballot papers. All we need is just simple arithmetic to add, and that's all we need. I mean, there's all these conspiracy theories out there. All we just simply need someone to do is just to be truthful and add the numbers, and whoever won this election to be declared the winner. Whatever comes up later on in terms of who did what, and whatever allegations there are out there, we will deal with that later. But as it stands right now, the country needs a government and it needs the parliament to be working. And we haven't had that, at least the parliament, since December 21st, 2018. And that is my concern.
Correct. Tim, it seems like Cambridge Analytica cost you guys the elections too, because if it's the PEP that all of these things in this country, you got to hold on to these Russians too, my friend.
It's amazing the resources that the PPP had, the money, the personnel. It's amazing what they were able to do after so long in opposition.
Yeah.
Their financing must be amazing. I wish I knew their secret. I don't.
Yeah.
Ryan is right about that. I wouldn't put it as simply as he's saying it, that, count the ballots, we need a government, because that doesn't help us. If we get a court order that tells us that Lowenfield is entitled to declare, as he was trying to do, that by valid votes, up to 1 2/3 majority, and therefore wins the government and wins 2/3 seats in parliament. So we should not ignore this question of valid votes. And at some point, I think that we need to discuss what valid votes means. You see, there was a process in this recount. If you look at the representation of the People's Act, it's divided into parts. And part 8 addresses what happens at the poll, the day of the vote. So when you go to the place of poll to vote, it addresses what happens then and provides what hopefully is a foolproof mechanism to make sure that the right person goes to vote and you don't have dead and overseas people there. Once that is done and you've complied with part 8 as to showing your ID and all of the many things we've talked about so often, part 9 of the Act talks about how you count these votes, how you count these ballots. And part 9 actually is specifically headed counting the ballots. So it talks about a count. And it identifies what Ryan was just talking about, where you put your X, where you put your X 2 places. And it separates out valid votes, which is where you go and probably put your X and it's easy to see where you intended to vote, from what they call rejected and spoiled ballots, which is where you put your X's in 2 places and that kind of thing. So when there's a big brouhaha in this court, as there is currently, about a valid vote, and before the incumbent saying you have to look at the validity of the votes, in the context of the recount process, by definition, validity means a vote that isn't rejected and isn't spoiled. Because at this counting stage on the part 9 of the Act, you're not going back to see if there are people voted or overseas people voted. That is part 8 at the poll when you check your ID. So what they've tried to do is conflate the two. They've tried to raise, without evidence, questions about if somebody was dead or overseas. And then they've tried to bring it into the counting process where it has no place and where you can't check. The paperwork there does not allow you to verify it or to rebut it. And therefore you're stuck. And that is why the things that very clearly in our affidavits in court now. We follow the process. And we are counting the ballots, we are recounting the ballots, and that's what we are about. We can't take evidence and cross-examine anybody else.
Right.
But Tim, as you were a part of the recount, is there enough supposedly dead voters or irregularities to negate the 15,000 that the PPP are ahead by?
Of course not.
So then why
are no proven dead voters? There are no proven overseas voters, and there are no proven disenfranchised military or police folk. It is all unsubstantiated allegations made by the PPP agent and recorded in an observation sheet that says no evidence. And Claudette Singh's statement and the statement by G. Communal, they said no evidence. We can't go and cross-examine anybody about this evidence. That is something, if you think it's true, you bring in an election petition.
Right.
But when you say if there's enough, there's none. It's not that we're trying to quantify. There isn't any.
But the reason why I'm saying that is because the political players, the big wigs, that's the rhetoric that they're feeding to their supporters, and their supporters are believing it to a point where it's as though there has been grave bad things that the PPP did, and they believe it, and that's why I'm saying, as far as I'm aware, there have not been any evidence to negate the 15,000 that PPP is leading by. So where are we really going with these allegations?
But Ryan, if I may, and Tim, I think what has happened here, one of the things too, is that ANUG AFC has this big net thrown over 41 or 42 boxes up at the East Coast, and they're using that to bolster the amount of votes. And they're saying the effect of, remember President David Granger himself took pains to start talking about flaking off. Now they have said, or they have asserted, that 5 to 6 votes, 15 to 20 votes in every ballot box across this country. And so they're saying the entire elections would have been tainted, and but come back to this thing, Ryan, I want to ask you this because I've said on radio 2 days ago that I believe that the PPP has also been reactive in this process. From day one, when there is this accusation to throw out 41 boxes, why didn't the people up at East Coast start? Is there any action they could have taken to say our votes must count? You cannot throw away our votes because Mr. So and so did not do his work. What's this nonsense about 42 boxes?
Right. They should have objected from the get-go. But the problem with the reason why the East Coast votes are so important is because that's where the lead came from. That's where the growth from the last election, the 10,000 that the PPP received, that's where it came from. And
Right.
the APNU knew they could not overcome the East Coast votes. So that's where the whole Mingo fiasco took place. But at the end of the day, you have no evidence that there was a wrong committed by PPP, and therefore you should just declare the election. But that's not what we are doing.
Correct.
We are supposed to be. I mean, as lawyers, we're supposed to have evidence of whatever wrong is or fraud is committed, but there is none. And they're saying basically that once there was one wrong that happened in a particular box, the entire box goes. And that's not the will of the people.
That's right. That's right.
And they can't decide that unless it's evidence taken in a court showing it. And the amount of birth certificates and death certificates that they're using does not negate the 15,000 lead that PPP has right now.
Right. Because the other problem we have from our viewers' perspective is that if you go back to what you and Tim said 2 minutes ago, if you take the 40 boxes up at the East Coast, 42 boxes, and you say an average of 250 per box, that's about 10,000 votes. So you are right, Ryan. It still doesn't hit that number of totally eliminating the PPP's lead.
Right. And I was an observer for the Guyana Bar Association for Berbice, or at least Region 6. And I was there when they were doing the actual counting at the RO's office. And it was a painstaking thing, and it was boring. And I couldn't imagine that is what we were doing. But they were going through each one of the ballots and the polling station. And they were doing it for hours and hours and hours. And there was no irregularity found then. And the numbers that the PPP has put up, that was in fact the numbers that showed up again at the recount. So the credibility for the PPP is there. The problem is that the other side does not want to show their SOPs, so they don't have any credibility.
Right.
Well, let me go further, Yog. When you count your ballots at the place of poll on the 2nd of March, as we know, you have the GCOM officials, the APNU representative, and the PPP representatives. And they put those ballots into the box, and they seal the box. So GCOM puts on their seals, PPP puts on their seals, APNU puts on their seals. They've all signed off the statement of poll. So when we reopened that box at the conference center, if it didn't have a counterfoil, some didn't have a counterfoil, there are so many more safeguards to assure you those votes represent votes that were cast at that place of poll. The fact that the PPP seals, the APNU seals, the GCOM seals are on the box. The fact that the ballots bear the specialized 6-digit number from that place of poll. The fact that when you check it under the UV light, it's a valid ballot, and that no ballots are missing from anywhere else. This isn't a situation where ballots are missing from elsewhere. Everything ties in. So even if the counterfoil is not there, there is enough to satisfy, and GCOM said they were satisfied and signed off, and the CARICOM officials signed off. These are valid votes counted, even though the counterfoil might not have been in the box. So there are many more safeguards.
Yes.
Allow you to count these because they arrived intact in the box.
Correct.
So I want to come to another situation here, Tim, and I want you to go first on this one. Madam Chairman made a very strong statement yesterday. In addition, 2 days before that, she would have said she's not a court and she ruled in that thing. Having said what she said yesterday, why hasn't she gone ahead then and demanded her CEO to give her a report and proceed with a declaration? Because there's nothing stopping them. Is it a fear that the court, or is it just respect for the court?
Well, you know, we have seen so much pressure exerted on different officials, and we've seen so many different officials thrown on the bus. The ANUG representatives have been thrown under the bus and told that they took bribes. Now, she is in a position where when Mingo's fraud was being uncovered, she said to the court, I'm going to hold on until y'all tell me what to do when court proceedings were filed. It's a bit much to ask her now that court proceedings are filed with the shoe on the other foot to rush ahead, even though there's no injunction against her. Mm-hmm. And you must remember, she is surrounded by a rogue secretariat. Lowenfield didn't ask her permission to hold on delivering the report that he was ordered to deliver. He just didn't deliver it. So what does she do? And I think that we have to see with her to that extent that she has, in the middle of a den of vipers, she is doing the best that she can do.
Of course.
And she has made her position clear. She has counted the ballots and the recount statements of recount have been signed off. She has ordered Lowenfield to prepare a report based on the statements of recount. He has not done so. She had no control over that, and has gone to court. But I think that she is entitled, and this nation has to understand that if Court of Appeal proceedings are pending, it would be a bit precipitate for her to rush ahead, fire Lowenfield, find somebody else to do the thing, and get it done. If the powers that be, including the incumbent, are looking hard at her.
Right. Ryan, I want to ask you this. Now, we know the people we are dealing with. We've had 111 days looking at the behaviors of the team at GCOM there. What is to say that if this court rules against the applicant and GCOM can go ahead, what is to say that Lowenfield will present his report in compliance with what is expected of him? What is to stop him, or how can he be stopped from just go presenting his same 125 is 2/3 to the ANUG AFC?
Well, that goes back to the same statement I made earlier about the first case with the Chief Justice. Mm-hmm. They have to make sure that the orders that are made with consequences. So if he does not do what the court ordered, he should be held in contempt and he could be jailed. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see if the court ruled against this motion that they are orders, stringent orders, that whoever the person is responsible for doing whatever particular job does not do it, there are consequences. And I don't like the fact that we have a constitution and laws that does not have consequences. People are walking around doing whatever they want to do at their own leisure, while the nation is just sitting here and have to take it. And I don't think that is proper. And I hope that the judges in the Court of Appeal, if they are going to rule against this motion, that they make orders that will compel him to do the right thing.
Right. So Tim, as you know, everybody in this country has been bruised and battered, and you guys in the front line have been even more so. But the problem is real, isn't it, Tim? There is a real fear that Mr. Lowenfield, when this court rules that GCOM must proceed on Monday, that Lowenfield will present a report that is like that would have been mingoized, that would have been absolutely false figures, not reflect, not. Does the chairman has any overreaching powers then that will see through a fraud and do something about it?
Definitely. The first report that Lowenfield has already submitted accurately reflects the statements of recount.
Correct.
So when they tell him to prepare the Section 96 report using those statements of recount, he can't change that much. And because those are records within GCOM that are at the hands of the commission, if he tries to change it, they internally see that problem and can fix it. And remember, Lowenfield is an employee. He is subject to the instructions of GCOM constitutionally. So GCOM said to him, you prepare your report on the Section 96 based on the statements of recount. All that is maths. That's just maths. One side got 193,000, the other side got 208,000, whatever it is. And after that is maths, how many seats you get. And he submits that report. There's no discretion in it. He can't. 2 and 2 is 4. That's maths. You can't change the numbers with maths.
Well, we thought so a year ago. We thought 32 and 33 was 65. We then thought SOPs. So we have seen differently.
Well, once again, I have to say thank God for foreigners. Huh?
But I want to come in here, gentlemen, and maybe we could go look at the front page today in Kaichur News, and we're seeing Ramjatan privately concedes Gaskin, I can no longer wait quietly and politely while a country gets hijacked. JFA party concedes, and now you have Change Guyana conceding to asking Granger to concede. How much pressure is Granger under at the moment, do you think?
For the answer, Leonard, for the record, let me just say that Mr. Ramjatan was on air this evening, and he said that that recording was done before he realized that this last matter would be taken to court. And so he still believes and he still looks forward for a decision in their favor.
Oh, that has changed now?
Yes. So if he still believes so, then his statements, he called you out. He called Kaichur News out and Kaichur Radio out for being extremely harsh and misrepresenting a lot of things. And he said that you guys had somebody running to you with a tape recorder with stuff. So Kaichur News will probably have to answer that.
Well, everybody had a recording out there. I think whoever was at the meeting, somebody had a recording. It's on YouTube, I think it is.
Right.
But having said that, I want to come back to the substantial question here. Gaskin, he's no ordinary person, a former business minister. He's a AFC Alliance executive. He's also the president's son-in-law. So he's coming out and saying, look, the country has been hijacked, ridiculed, torn apart. How do you gauge the kind of pressure, or do you have any idea what kind of pressure the president is under at this point in time? And shouldn't that be enough for him to say, look, the pressure is too much and let us do what's the right thing?
Leonard, half of the country doesn't give a damn. They don't care. They wanted to believe Mr. Granger when he said that they won on the 3rd of March. They believed him absolutely, even though he didn't show his statements of poll. They believed him when he said PPP statements of poll were forged and faked. They believed them when they said the small parties had used PPP statements of poll. When the recount started, they believed them when they said we're going to win by a larger margin. After a while, they believed them when they said PPP bribed everybody in every single place of poll. Now they believe them when they say dead people, overseas people voted. They are going to believe anything just so that their party can win. So it doesn't matter that somebody has been exposed as a lie. 100 lies have been exposed in this process. And even after the 99th lie is exposed, the party loyalists still believe the 100th lie.
So, Tim, I want to come back to the earlier question that I posed to you and Mr. Crawford in terms of the overreach that the chairman would have. And for the viewers and listeners, let us repeat that Tim is actually, he said it as it is. Lowenfield already submitted a preliminary report to the commission, and within those preliminary reports are the numbers of the recount, of the certificate of recount. So he cannot change that. And Lowenfield's final report, the difference is that in his final report, he would have done the allocation, the seats allocation in the National Assembly. And that I believe anybody could do. But Tim, my question to you both is that supposing now the decision goes
against PPP?
Yes, the decision goes for the applicant. What then? What then would be the remit of the chairman, especially after her statement?
The only conceivable order that can be made, in my view, would be an order that says votes mean valid votes. But that is a non-order. It's irrelevant because GCOM have already determined, they've already ascertained on the recount the number of valid votes cast. Mm-hmm. So they having decided that these votes are valid and having instructed Lowenfield to make his Section 96 report based on those votes as recounted, that issue is resolved. GCOM has internally already satisfied itself that there are valid votes 193 versus 200 and whatever's out there. Mm-hmm. So it's a non-issue. Okay. The court is being asked to decide something that's hypothetical, that's academic, because it's already been determined by GCOM.
But the court has been hearing it. I mean, Ryan, what's your comment on it?
Well, from what the president has been saying, that GCOM is an independent body and GCOM is responsible for that, he would not get involved with what GCOM is supposed to do, their constitutional duty. If the chairperson ordered from the, I believe it's order 60 or I can't remember what it is, to say, do a preliminary report saying that the statement of recount is this way. Lowenfield, made some calculations that by taking out votes, I don't know where he got that from, but nothing in the laws of Guyana says that he can do that. All they ask him to do as the CEO is to do the tabulations. And all he has to do is do that, make whatever was ordered by the chairperson, do it, and get it over with. But what he has done is that he has defied his own duty as an officer of GCOM. So right now, I would say that he must do what he's supposed to do, and I don't know where else we're going to. Sit there and just watch this episode happen. I'm just sitting here, and just when I think it's coming to an end, something else is coming up, and right now, I'm lost to know where we're going legally and morally. So I wouldn't be surprised if something come up tomorrow.
Right. And what would you two gentlemen, what would be your reaction to the hypothetical case that APNU AFC being in government and hearing on in their minds, or they're going to tell their supporters, hearing all of these calls and all of these cries about irregularities and valid and not so valid votes and stuff, that they decide, okay, they want to protect the people and stay in power.
Protect the people?
Their people, yes. That they claim that they would have won these elections by.
But the thing is that there is a valid declaration out there by Mingo. Mm-hmm. If the president felt he won so badly, why didn't he not swear in? Just swear in. But I think that the president knows that he did not win. And he's afraid of whatever consequences the international community would unleash on this country. And if he's asking for, he came up with a recount, he should abide by whatever came out of the recount. the rhetoric that they won is now changed to there is cheating, and it was cheating by PPP. So I think now is the time where the president should lead, because at the end of the day, we're going to have an election in 5 years. And the longer he does not do his job by leading the people properly, they will lose worse on the next election.
Right. And that's not good for this country, because we need good opposition in parliament. But Tim, I wanna come back to you along the same line. Granger, as both of you have said, as everybody has said, he knew he lost his elections on March 4th, 5th, thereabouts. Why did he then still go for a recount? What could he have hoped that the recount would have revealed that would have changed that knowledge he had on March 3rd? And, why is it that there was some pre-planned something that if this thing didn't go their way, then they're going to go this route? Are we just reading too much into it? Why did he go for the recount? Leonard, I have both attorneys silent at me now. This is an amazing report.
We have had this conversation amongst colleagues in the legal fraternity, and no one seemed to able to answer the question. It's as though the government or the coalition is making this stuff up as it goes, as it happens, or they're going to find something new. No logical explanation. You had to have known that you lost the election. So why continue it? If he's going to operate outside the ambit of the law, then just swear in.
Correct.
Don't waste time with anything, because we're talking about all these scenarios, but what we are not talking about is that there are laws on the books, and we have a valid constitution that was made by Burnham, and he's ruling us from the grave. We haven't changed this. This thing is saying that even if you're wrong, you get to swear in. So if that's the case, and you feel that you're not going to concede or give up power, then just swear in on the Mingo Declaration,
right,
and get it over with.
Correct. So, Tim, in terms of how do I put this question? It's a difficult one, not necessarily asking you for your legal knowledge here, sir, more your human reaction. How would this country, or how could people trust Mr. Granger and his team? Here's my argument. He came out a week ago and he said, I never saw the SOPs. I saw a spreadsheet. You have heard everybody make a hue and a cry about the spreadsheet, and you still 100 days later relied on a spreadsheet. What does it say to a president that has been obviously allowed himself, knowing he's being misled, and still continue up to this day to remain there knowing he's wrong? By now, he must have the observer report him. He was a party that requested CARICOM.
Let me go back to your first question and try to answer. Why delay? Why delay? And I had an old client used to say there's many a split between the cup and the lip. And I think that's the reason. You see, the institutions are padded. The institutions are not neutral. Mingo's demonstrated that, Lowenfield has demonstrated that, the entire hierarchy of the Secretariat has demonstrated that. Anybody that went into the conference center and saw the covert, the quiet obstructionism and verging sometimes on hostility that is directed by some of those officials and members of the opposition, recognize that there is a loyalty, there is a sympathy for one side. So there's the knowledge, first of all, that the Secretariat that are implementing the system is sympathetic. So maybe something can come of that. And then many different court proceedings, maybe something can come of that. Even to the end result, where at the last, Lowenfield is directed to submit his report and doesn't. That tells you something. It's as if you're going into the casino to gamble, and your opponent owns the casino, owns the man dealing the cards, has stacked the deck. It's as if everything is already stacked and ready, and that is the fight that you're fighting. So I think the delay was in recognition that something would follow.
Yeah.
And even now, here we are at the 11th hour, 1 minute to midnight, and we're wondering if on Monday something will follow.
Right.
We still don't know.
Correct.
But I believe that there is some sort of optimism on the part of this government that they will win this motion. I think that's why they're there, because there is some optimism somewhere.
Mm-hmm. But is there a CCJ after this for either side? If the decision goes for?
If the order goes outside of the four corners of Article 177, then it is not a 177 order.
Okay.
And therefore it is not a final order. And I believe an appeal license.
But Tim, from a layman's perspective, I mean, the public would have seen the notice. It's been widely circulated. The only section quoted has been 177 in the original notice. Has anything changed?
Well, you could put 177 on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Make an application and you write 177 at the top doesn't make it a 177 application. It's it needs to look like a rose and smell like a rose. In fact, if you label it rose at the top doesn't make it a rose. Right. So you have to look at the substance of it, not at the form.
Right. And to our viewers and listeners out there, let me remind you that we have indeed been stretching out our arms, and we have opened this program and our daytime program to members of the coalition to come in and let's talk. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I had requested Mr. Gobin Harbijan to join us when we were having members of the society to come in from Berbice and join this program. And I had written to the Prime Minister requesting release of certain persons, and there has not been a response. So we have been reaching out to members of the coalition to join us here as well, and that has not happened. Brian, you have had and let me be very careful with the word I'm using here and be not a reporter. You've had an outburst at that has
outbursts.
I stop.
An outburst that has captured everybody's imagination, because when you spoke, Ryan, I mean, Yog would never have used the adjectives you use, but you spoke, and I think you spoke for everybody. And it's not the way you did it, but it is, you spoke for everybody, because everybody at that stage had the same kind of frustrations with the police. And the police continue to have roadblocks all over the place. We know now it's COVID and it's different, but roadblocks and so forth continue. Has there been any change in your mind? I mean, maybe they're not stopping you anymore, but has there been any change in your mind, Ryan?
Not really. When I was the last time I was on Leonard on Gildarie show, I emphasized that we don't really have criminal procedure laws in this country, whereby stop and search, stop and seizure. And I think that is one of the areas of our criminal laws that we need to strengthen. People are being stopped for no particular reason. My actions on that day, if I should go back to it, it came out of frustration. It's when you practice criminal law and people come into your office and they're crying and saying that their sons or daughters were arrested unlawfully, and there's nothing a lawyer really can do to help, and any police could basically do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And I think we are in a situation whereby not a lot of lawyers are filing actions against police. And we need to do much more as lawyers, or the Bar Association need to do much more to help the average citizens out there. I mean, we have situations where people are stopped and their tints are being pulled off, for example, and the police are driving around the place with dark tints. I mean, there's no authority for a police to strip your tints. It must come from an order of court. And there is no respect in terms of of the courts anymore. And I think at some point in time, the next government or whoever gets into parliament needs to address certain issues and try to protect the nation. And I should not have used those words. And if I had to do it again, I would probably not do it. I've come to grips that I need to stop saying certain words.
I don't
You
think
would
there's
let a
understanding.
lawyer come forward the next time, right?
But I want to ask you guys, maybe this is something. What role did social media play in elections 2020 in Guyana?
I think it's a beautiful. It did wonderful wonders. It was wonderful.
Do you think it was abused too, also in the same breath by two other third parties, third forces?
Um, I have no objection to freedom of press and freedom of speech, but I thought it was a good thing because it was the media and the live that caught Mingo and we got to see what was happening, and I think people were fully engaged. The nation was fully engaged through social media, and I think that's a good thing.
Has it changed elections, the way that we look at life, the way we look at our politicians, the way we engage forever?
There's no doubt that you need to be very careful in how you express something, how you say it, because whether you like it or not, and often whether you know it or not, you are being recorded, and every single word is being analyzed, and often by people who are not friendly. So things are taken out of context, snapshots are taken, words are taken from a long statement and replayed, and you have to be careful about everything you say. But I agree with Ryan. The cell phone it caused Arab Spring, and it is the weapon of the masses. Right now, if a policeman is abusing his position, if a person in authority is abusing his position, you put a cell phone on them and they suddenly get polite. And if they don't, you broadcast it on Facebook for all to see. And you have immediate evidence there. You're not in a situation where it's your word against their word 2 days later, because a picture is always worth 1,000 words. So it is a potent weapon, and it is something that we have to continue to use. Its availability has transformed this particular election. Everyone in Guyana, I'm sure, who has access to a computer has seen Mingo talking about using his broadsheets and not using the statements of poll and saying if you don't like it, you can go to court. No one is in any doubt as to what Mingo did. And that is because of the cell phone and because of social media. I want to go back and touch on something Ryan had said with the police. We've got there are 3 areas of endeavor in Guyana that need to be looked at. Our nurses, our police, and our teachers. They need to be better paid. They need to be more respected. And the way to respect them more is to pay them more. So that when your child says to you that he wants to be a nurse or he wants to be a policeman or he wants to be a teacher, you feel proud because you know that he is going into a career that will provide him with a house, that he can look after his family, he can buy a car, and he can take them all on holiday every year. And he will be a respected member of society with standing. That's not the case now. So we scrape the bottom of the barrel to get some of these folks, and although a lot of them try their best and do a very, very good job, we can do better. We need to do better by them so they can do better by us. Now, that thing you talked about with the roadblocks is close to my heart because it annoys me no end. There are permanent roadblocks at Werby's Bridge. Well done.
Well done.
Another one going in the interior. You have a constitutional right, and this is where I wanted to bring it up because I don't think Ryan touched on it. You have a constitutional right to travel freely without hindrance throughout Guyana and in and out of Guyana. And every time you are made to stop at a roadblock, or every time a policeman puts up his hand for no cause whatsoever to stop you, he is infringing your constitutional right. And we are so accustomed to that oppression that we are beginning to think nothing's wrong with it. And the police themselves justify it by saying, look, we got somebody with, some illegal substance in the car yesterday or this or that. You do not break the law to enforce the law. And that needs to stop. And let's face a reality in Guyana. The method of corruption at that level is to stop somebody so that if they have something wrong with their paperwork, if they've done something wrong, you have leverage to get them. Let's not sidetrack it. So although there are good, competent police out there, it is known, and it is actually informally known within the force that this is subsidiary income here. And the reason is that you can haul in somebody and arrest them and put them through that inconvenience. So we need to take steps to stop that unlawful stop. And then we need to take steps to very closely regulate the power of arrest. Because there isn't a driver in Guyana that would totally change his attitude if he knew that if he was stopped for not stopping at a stop sign or for jumping a red light, and the police only had power to hand him a ticket, he would be so empowered that that whole avenue of corruption would disappear. But you can't make the avenue of corruption disappear, and you're still paying these boys $8,000 to $9,000 to $100,000 a month. You have got to honor your police and your teachers and your nurses by paying them better so that we have professionals aspiring to there. Not that we scrape in the bottom of the barrel to get them.
Absolutely. And there's another side to that. Do you know, Yog, that since before elections, it's been about 3 months now, that policemen have been in line on the station. Some of them would be telling you stories of being short of food and begging other people for food. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I'll tell you a story about England, how they do it there. In England, the police set themselves up at 2 spots along a highway where there's no turnoff. So if a car passes that looks old or looks suspicious, they use their computer and they enter the license plate of that car. And the record comes up. So if the paperwork is in order, if it has insurance and that kind of thing. And if something is wrong, they contact their partner half a mile down the road with the license number and say, stop that car. So that car is stopped when they have reasonable cause to suspect that there's an offense going on, which is the only time the police are allowed to stop you. So it's not this arbitrary thing where they step out self-important and put their hand up and you got to stop. They have evolved the system to respect the law. That they do not stop you. They don't bother you unless they've inquired and know that they've got reasonable cause against you. That is how it should work.
Interesting. I want to bring us back to these elections. We're almost at the top of our program, bottom of our program now. And Tim and Ryan, we obviously are looking, everybody's now waiting for Monday decision. Tim, regardless of what happened, well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Mr. Lowenfield still has his day. But the joint parties has a seat.
Not if Mr. Lowenfield has his way. Yeah.
What if the good is still to happen in this country? What is the position with the joint party seat?
Well, what I can tell you is that one of the first pieces of legislation that I will propose is to change police powers of arrest in respect of vehicular offenses. That you may only be arrested if you are deemed to be a threat, like if you're intoxicated to the extent that you're a danger to the public. Otherwise, you get a ticket and you go your way, or they send your ticket in the mail. Because right. I think that will eradicate that corruption immediately.
Call in Ryan Crawford.
Yeah. You call it Ryan Crawford up, yes.
The thing about these arrests, if you, for example, are is living in the U.S., there is the 4th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, the 6th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that dictates how you are stopped. In this country, we do not have these rules or guidelines in terms of arrest and stop. Someone came to my office the other day where he was arrested for an entire day on an allegation, and he was placed on station bail, called the next day to come and collect his station bail, and nothing happened. There was never a charge. There was nothing. So this man's liberty was taken away on some whims and fancy of someone just making an allegation. And those are things that we need to protect against.
But Ryan, I don't agree with you that there's no remedy because
No,
the police.
there are remedies, but you have to go to court for it.
Well, anywhere in the world, you'd have to go to court for your remedy. Because what I can tell you is I've had people who have been arrested in circumstances you describe overnight, and I've offered to them without cost to represent them to make a point to try and stop this thing. And they prefer having been released just to go back under the rock, go back under the radar, and live their life. Even though I'm saying to them, I'm not charging you. This thing, we need to do this as a public service. They prefer to just go back, and that empowers the wrongdoers.
I think that's something that the Bar Association should implement, that each lawyer should do some sort of pro bono work, at least for a year, maybe take a case or two to help a person.
There's no shortage of such lawyers, you know. In Georgetown, you call around and people will do it. Because I'll tell you about your roadblocks. A roadblock is unconstitutional. The police are entitled to roadblock if they have specific grounds, if they have a specific reason that is exceptional in that circumstance. Not the permanent roadblocks we got there.
I hear what you're saying, Tim, but if you do that stuff at the roadblock, you know, I will have to call you to come and get me out of the jail.
Well, I know which lawyer to call when I'm heading down home.
You can apply to the court for an order mandating the Commissioner of Police to remove the roadblock.
Thank you. So let us come back to these elections a little bit. We are all waiting for Monday, ladies and gentlemen. You know, if things go the logical way that our two attorneys seem to be looking at it, we could have a declaration by Monday. Tim, is there any requirement for a public declaration by the chairman, or is it she just advises the chancellor?
I don't know, you. I haven't checked. I'm sorry.
Okay. And Ryan, how does Ryan Crawford now see your own positioning for a 2025 election participation one year?
I will not participate in an election. I only did it because I needed to have a forum to maybe cause some trouble. I've had when ANUG and Fed Up decided that we may come together, we were getting signatures in Region 5, and something really troubling happened to me while I was going around looking for signatures, and I went to a family member, and the reception was terrible. It's as though I was an enemy, and I don't want to experience that again. I don't want to go and ask people for signatures. I mean, my own family did not, believe in me or thought I was doing something wrong because I was competing against whatever party she was going to vote for, and I don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
I hope that the people of this country will come together sometime. I think we are great people, and I hope that someday we will get past this racial nonsense and be a better nation. I think they are good people who are capable. I think this is the point I wanted to make. I think the 9,000 people that voted for the small parties, to me, those are the real heroes of this election. They saw past all the racial nonsense and all the big parties, and they voted for their country. And I have the utmost respect for those 9,000 people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Brian, just quickly, what's the status of AFC in your mind as of today? Dead? Buried? Alive?
No, I think they're still going to be around. I just think that they need to regroup. Tim was also a part of AFC. I was part of AFC. I thought they had the opportunity to bridge the divide, and they went with power instead of the people. And the minute you start to focus on power and start to lose focus on what really matters, that is the people, you're going to run into trouble. And I think somewhere along the line, once they regroup and find the right people, as with any political party, the people will listen to them. I think people don't really follow political parties that much. I think they follow people. People follow, for example, the opposition leader in PPP. I know people will now follow Tim because of what he has done so far in these elections. I think they will follow Schumann as well. So I think as long as you do the right thing and put the people first, they will follow you.
Right. Thank you. Tim, do you see a growth here in terms of yours and the other new parties? I think I certainly see a phenomenal growth ahead. And I think a lot of people are predicting that by 2025, one of the large historical parties might be obliterated.
I don't see the large parties being obliterated. They have their party loyalists that will never move. I don't agree with Ryan about the AFC. I think they're finished. The 30,000 votes that the AFC had were not tied, bonded votes. AFC didn't own those votes like the two large parties own their party loyalists.
Right.
And when AFC betrayed their trust by allowing the optimum excesses, to me, they lost every last one of them. And if you look at the simple numbers, the 2011 elections that put PPP in government, but with a minority, between the two of them, APNU and AFC sitting in opposition had 5,000 votes in advance. When AFC joined, they won by 4,500 votes. Now that they've lost, the PPP have won the combined opposition by the same 6,000 votes. That 25,000 votes to the AFC, 10,000 went to the small parties, and 15,000 went to PPP because they didn't happen to get back in power. I do not see that there are any people who are left having any confidence in the AFC. I hear Ryan say that he's finished with contesting elections. I hope at some point to persuade him otherwise. Ryan is a smart, charismatic lawyer. He has some prestige and renown in Barbados, and I have found him to be honest and to deal with people straight up in a way that I appreciate. We all cuss when we vex. I don't know if the country judged him for that, but I know hypocrite, I'm not going to judge him for that. If you catch me on a bad day, I might say the same. So I hope to see him involved in politics. And in fact, I hope to see him having a talk with us at some point, because we need people like that. We need leaders. We need to swell the ranks of the third party going forward.
Yes, indeed. So thank you for that. And Ryan, any closing comments from you, sir?
Just I hope that Monday is a good day, and hopefully I notice everyone on Facebook are saying they're fed up. All of a sudden they're fed up. I don't appreciate it that they're fed up now. They should have been fed up before. But I hope that the good sense prevail, and I hope that someday, not in the distant future, that we have a nation that is progressive and united. And I really hope that I don't have to listen to politics after Monday. I really hope so.
I don't think they're fed up. They're showing you love.
Tim, your closing comments.
I hope Ryan's right. I hope that on Monday the Court of Appeal does what I think it should do and throws out this last-ditch effort that gave Kemra Ramjatan last-ditch hope, so that he went back on his gracious words of conceding and decided to hold on for this last-ditch effort. And I hope that the commission can close off quickly. The whole country knows who won these elections. There isn't a Guyanese in Guyana who has any doubt who won these elections. And that needs to be vindicated by the swearing in of the new president, the transition of government, and for the interest of their supporters ANUG needs to reconfigure, put some young blood in there, and come back with a new idea, a new approach, because the old soldiers are no longer cutting it. They are not fooling anyone.
Right. I thought you would have said there and come back with a new and united Guyana, but you missed that one there, Jim.
They will always be party loyalists, but there are enough swing votes in Guyana now that we can get our job done, and we will do so.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. It's been great to have you here. And let me just read a message to you both from one of our viewers. They said, Mr. Ryan Crawford, happy Father's Day. Mr. Timothy Jonas, happy Father's Day to you both. And Leonard, I must say, you have been included in this list. Happy Father's Day. And they said to tell Kevin, happy Sunday, but it is not Sunday. It is just a Sunday for him.
Yes.
So, Ryan and Tim, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We certainly look forward to more discussions like this. People are saying that they're learning a lot, which is, the objective of these discussions. And ladies and gentlemen, for all you fathers, to President Reza, happy Father's Day, sir. As my dad, your humble little son here is asking you to please concede. You can do it tomorrow and make Guyana proud of you, Mr. President David Granger. And ladies and gentlemen, also Father's Day to all the wonderful fathers all across Guyana. We certainly hope you have a wonderful Sunday and wake up to a beautiful Monday. And let's put the past behind us and look forward to a great future ahead. My co-host Leonard Gildarie, thank you, sir. I think the brilliance of our two lawyers have kept us both give us both a lot of quiet moments today, Leonard.
Yes, I had to listen to the good counsels, but I couldn't believe that you would say Happy Father's Day to your dad with a straight face. I couldn't believe that. I think that was the highlight of the show.
Well, yes, and I wish to repeat that. Happy Father's Day to all. To President-elect Irfan Ali, happy Father's Day to you, sir. Mr. Kamraj Ramjatan, happy Father's Day. You are my brother, but you have your children, so happy Father's Day. And to all of you, happy Father's Day tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been good to have you in room 592. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and do say a prayer for this beautiful country of ours. God bless you all. God bless this beautiful country, Guyana. Do have a great night and a great Sunday ahead. Bye-bye now from room 592.
Good night.
Thank you. And Leonard.
Yes, all the best.